you guys? Welcome to trèSci Weekly, episode 15, coming at you live on May 15th, 2017. I figured I should start saying the date.
Yeah, that's
on
a
this
good
now.
idea.
Yeah, right? That way if people watch later on, they know.
when it's fun.
Yeah. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Ullman, alongside the destroyer of shins, Tom Kea.
What's up, everybody?
Nobody gets that reference yet.
Yet.
Tom, yet.
We'll be there.
We'll be there momentarily.
It's in our first story.
Indeed. How are you?
Good. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well.
Ready for some science?
I'm always ready for some science. A little tired today. Not gonna lie. It's been a long.
8:30 is in the evening. You know.
Yeah, it's been a long day. I've been up since 4:30 this morning, so you know, doing okay though. Hanging in there.
Yeah.
Gonna power through, and do the darn thing.
Let's do it.
So, first of all, welcome to those of you who are joining us live. Thank you for being here. Quick shout out to our Patreon supporters, of which there is a new one.
Yeah.
Tom.
Very, very excited.
Future brother-in-law, I hope. Juan Gonzalez. Subscribe to us on Patreon. Awesome. Really cool.
Thank you for the support.
Thank you so much.
Keeping us going.
Appreciate that. Another quick shout out to all the mothers.
Yeah.
Happy Mother's Day. Yesterday being Mother's Day. Yeah, so a quick shout out to all the moms out there. I know we have a lot of moms that watch this show.
We do.
Which is cool.
Shout out to you guys.
Yeah.
It turned out to be a nice day, too, weather-wise.
Yeah.
Nice Mother's Day.
Some weird freak pockets of rain at the end of the day. But otherwise, yeah, it was a pretty nice day. Nicer than I think they thought it was going to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, today was a little crummier than I think they thought it was going to be today, Tom. One last quick shout out. Went to Swell Taco.
Oh, nice.
In town the other day. It was pretty swell. I will say that. It was pretty good.
Nice. I have to check that out.
Yeah, you should. It's pretty cool. I feel like you would like it. So if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to the show. This is our weekly video podcast where Tom and I discuss science news topics that are trending throughout the week, offering our opinions and thoughts on the matters at hand.
Our beautiful insights.
Our beautiful insights, of course. If you like this content, of course, you can subscribe to the channel. That would be a huge help for us. You can also like us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/trèSci-weekly. You can go follow us on twitter.com/trèSci-weekly. And as we mentioned earlier, we do have a Patreon page where you can pledge a financial donation if you so choose. That, of course, helps, pay the bills, as they say.
And keep the science alive.
Keeps the science alive. We have 7 items on the news list today, Tom.
Yep.
So without further ado, let's jump right into it, shall we?
Sounds good.
All right. First story is a paleontology story. Dinosaurs, Tom.
Everybody loves dinosaurs.
Everybody loves dinosaurs. So number 1. Paleontologists have discovered a new genus and species of ankylosaurine dinosaur, according to a recent study by Victoria Arbour and David Evans of the Royal Ontario Museum. And those ankylosaur dinosaurs, Tom, those are the ones with the club tails.
Yeah, I think that's like its defining feature.
Yeah.
It's got the big tail with the club at the end of it.
Yep, they're on all fours. They have kind of a spiny back.
They're not very tall.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, they kind of look something like this, right?
Yeah, I think everybody knows from Land Before Time, right?
Yeah.
There was one of those guys in the beginning, I think. Possibly.
Possibly. There's not like a main character ankylosaur in the Land Before Time.
I think you see one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, they got them all. Classic movies. Named Zuul crurivastator. The fossils were dug up within the Judith River Formation in northern Montana, corresponding to a Campanian deposit. I think I'm saying that right. Campanian deposit, a late Cretaceous deposit dating back approximately 72 to 83 million years ago. The discovery of Zuul is significant for a number of reasons. For one, this represents the first ankylosaurine skeleton with a complete skull and tail club intact, and makes Zuul the most complete ankylosaurid ever found in North America. In addition, The preservation of soft tissue osteoderms are prevalent, leading to evolutionary insight as to how dermal and epidermal features may have developed.
So like we were mentioning before, that this dinosaur was from the end of dinosaurs, basically. You know, at 65 million years ago, dinosaurs became extinct. I think everybody kind of knows that.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about evolutionary things, it kind of is a cool way to check the end of the dinosaur record and see how their structures sort of became modernized structures.
Correct. Right.
In terms of evolution.
And we can see sort of the evolutionary paths of those sort of traits going into modern day reptiles or modern day birds, because now we're pretty confident, as we reported actually back a few weeks ago. They kind of charted out the phylogenetic tree.
Yeah.
And now there is a direct tie from birds to dinosaurs, which is pretty cool. Finally, the authors of the study also point out that this is one of the first large-scale, fully intact fossils discovered within the Judith River Formation, and so there is likely more to find where Zuul came from. Quote, "The excellent preservation of ROM 75860, I'm assuming that's kind of like the paleontologist designation of Zuul.
Okay.
It's prison number, if you will. And the abundant diversity represented elsewhere in the same quarry highlight the potential for significant new fossil discoveries in the Upper Judith River Formation and emphasize the need for continued work in this historically significant geological unit." End quote. If you're wondering why the name Zuul sounds familiar, it's because Zuul is the name of the demigod creature in the 1984 film Ghostbusters.
I had no idea.
You're not a fan of Ghostbusters, Tom?
I like it. But I didn't know Zuul.
Yeah, I actually didn't pick that out right away either. Zuul crurivastator is named for that character due to its uncanny resemblance, and if you were wondering, crurivastator loosely translates to destroyer of shins, a nod to the incredible power of the tail club. And Tom, that just so happens to be your nickname as well, so that's really incredible. What an odd coincidence.
Yeah, so that was kind of a funny one. We were joking, the destroyer of shins, because it's got the club on it, so like it could get you.
Yeah.
But then we were joking that the real destroyer of shins is actually the Razor scooter.
Oh yeah, dude. I used to try to do a tail whip every time I was on my Razor scooter, and I got hacked up from that thing. Yeah,
always get banged up.
Yeah, real bad. So image credit goes to the Arbour and D. Evans, as well as TheGuardian, for the images that we've been showing you. And video credit goes to the Royal Ontario Museum for some of the videos that we've been showing. There's one in particular that I think you guys will enjoy, so we're going to shoot over to that in just a second. Kyle can give us the cue on when to hit play as soon as we put the buds in. All right, give me the nod, Kai.
Greetings. I am Dan Aykroyd, aka Ray Stantz, Ghostbuster, and you're looking at a close-up of the terror dog from the movie Ghostbusters. And this is a real terror dog in the form of an ankylosaurus. We're so honored that the Royal Ontario Museum would accord the name of this magnificent creature with the appellation that we called our terror dog in the movie, and that is Zuul, Z-U-U-L.
So there you have it. Zuul lives. Well, not really, actually. He lived maybe millions of years ago. No, but I like that Dan Aykroyd came and made an appearance with the scientists. There are more videos with the actual two scientists with the Royal Ontario Museum that they kind of explain more about the fossil and the fossils and whatnot.
If you're, curious.
Yeah, I can put some of that stuff up on the Facebook page later on in the week for you guys. But I like that kind of stuff. I like that Dan Aykroyd is kind of, using his fame, I guess, for
getting
good,
some knowledge out there about something else.
Putting it out there. I wish more science and pop culture would do this kind of intertwining
together.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I like it.
It looks pretty awesome though. From the skeleton, I feel like you can kind of extrapolate in your mind's eye like what the whole thing actually looks like.
Yeah.
And it personally reminds me of the Pokemon Sandshrew with like the scales on it, because it's like kind of like an armadillo-y type creature.
Okay.
But I feel like if you were gonna make a brawler team of dinosaurs, this would be on it. With like your Velociraptor, this guy with the club, maybe the other guy who would just like charge you, get a whole gang together.
The headbutting guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I know what you're talking about. No, they say that the
cool dinosaur, though.
The tail club for the ankylosaur was particularly useful against like two-legged predators like T-Rex and whatnot, because you just take out one ankle on that dude
and that's it,
and you're good. So
and he has like no defense against that, because that's all he is a head basically.
Yeah, and his arms are like that small. So
very cool.
All right, moving on. Number 2. Going to move into the world of statistics here for a second time. John Thompson has abruptly resigned his position as director of the United States Census Bureau. This comes at a crucial time for the Census Bureau as the department begins to ramp up preparations for the 2020 decennial census. Thompson met with a congressional spending panel a couple weeks ago on May 3rd, detailing the investments the department had made in data collection IT programs that will help cap the cost of the upcoming census. According to Science Magazine, however, at that hearing, Thompson had to admit that, quote, the Census Enterprise Data Collection and Processing, or CEDCAP for short, program is now $309 million over its original cost estimate of $656 million, blaming the jump on the agency's lack of in-house technical and accounting expertise, end quote.
So I guess that's kind of unfortunate that it wasn't running the way they had planned, and now it's going to be more money than they had initially thought. But we were saying before, the census is kind of something that you kind of want to do, even if they kind of screwed up their budget. I mean, that stinks, but this is an important thing that is very relevant to a lot of different issues, from transportation to food supply and just knowing how many people are in the world, basically. Right?
Absolutely, yeah. And you know what? Not a huge surprise that the budget overran what the estimate was, because it's a decennial census. They do it every 10 years. I mean, think of how technology has jumped in the last 10 years.
Tools.
When you make an estimate based off the 2010 census of like, oh, we're going to need this infrastructure of, web interface and mobile interface and this and that. Well, by the time that 10 years comes up, it's going to be way over what you probably thought it was going to cost. So not a huge surprise there. It will now be up to the Trump administration to nominate a new candidate for the director gig, which poses an interesting political juxtaposition, since the president seems intent on imposing funding cuts to the United States Department of Commerce, which houses the Census Bureau. The census is one of the largest regular statistical undertakings, and its accuracy and importance should not be understated. The census is written into the United States Constitution as it allocates the seats of the House of Representatives to the states based on their populations. It also provides the federal, state, and local governments with data to make decisions planning transportation systems, housing, and public facilities, and determining quotas for police and fire departments, among other things. An image credit goes to census.gov for the nice mugshot of JT. So a lot of people have been, focusing on the firing of James Comey as the FBI director. Mm-hmm. And this news, I feel like, really flew under the radar as far as...
I didn't really see it on major news outlets.
Yeah, as far as, the resignation of another government official that, this is going to leave a void of leadership at a time when there really needs to be leadership in that department. Mm-hmm. And the Trump administration, I'm sure, now has to think about who they want to nominate as, who's going to become the next director of the Census Bureau. And that's going to take some time. And then it has to get approved by Congress, and that's going to take some time. And so we keep pushing this back, and probably a lot of the people that are working for that agency don't really know what the next course of action is going to be for the immediate future. And so I feel for those people. You know, this is a huge undertaking of collecting all this data.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, if they don't get it right, if it becomes inaccurate, right, the numbers become inaccurate, that can mess up a whole lot of different things.
Yeah, it's really important to have your correct bookkeeping, right? When in terms of numbers with this kind of stuff, in order to plan effectively, right? You need to know where all your things are before you're going to put them places. Right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's kind of logical, and at this day and age, in 2017, with the population being as outrageous as it is in a lot of parts of the world, things like this, I don't think, should be left on the wayside or chopped from their importance. You know? Just because they're having some spending issues and now changing leadership, this is still a really important thing that should be pursued as much as it was before, right?
Definitely. Now, you and I have been on the record as saying that population jumps over the past, few decades have been really alarming in terms of, what the number of people on the planet is.
Yeah, when you look at that graph, it's the classic exponential of insane growth, right?
Right. So I actually wanted to bring up a web page, and Kyle, if you can help me bring that up for the people here. This is the population clock as provided by the Census Bureau, census.gov. And basically what it does is it takes a look at both the U.S. population and the world population, and it sort of counts using the rates that the census has accumulated over their
to give you the closest approximation of what the population is.
Exactly.
In those areas.
Right. So this isn't literally counting people
Each
being
person,
born and people dying, but it's considering the rates that have been determined over the collection of many years of data and now applying it to an overtime model. And
to keep this accurate, we need this new census to be done exactly the way it should be, right?
Exactly, yeah. So you can see here
the numbers are pretty big.
Yeah, we're estimated of up to 325 million or so people in the United States. And then if you scroll over a little bit to the world population, we are almost at the 7.4 billion mark. And just watching the rate increase here, the number increase, scares the heck out of me, Tom.
It is pretty crazy.
This is too many people. Too many, right? And this, how do you impose any sort of rule of well, you can't reproduce any more people, you can't. There's no way to stop people from making more people. So we know that this is a problem, and we have accurate data on the numbers. What happens now if the census in 2020 goes awry and we don't have accurate data anymore? Now the problem becomes, twofold, right? We have too many people, and we don't know at what rate the number is
increasing
growing.
And where they are, and exactly.
So this is a really, really interesting wrinkle in United States politics. And
I think you could correlate a lot of the issues in the United States and the entire world to this very issue. There's just a lot of people to take care of, right?
I agree.
And it's important to really stay on top of it.
I agree.
Totally.
Shall we move on?
We shall.
All right.
Kind of interesting, the census.
Yeah.
Just keeping track of all the people on the planet.
We've been doing it since
for as long as we can,
Since the 1700s, I believe. So that's really cool. It's a cool tradition that we should upkeep, just in general. Number 3, moving on to planetary science. I didn't take a sip of my water. I picked it up and I didn't take a sip of it. Number 3.
Off to space again, as we usually are.
Yes.
At some point.
With me in the show. Yeah, we always are. Io, one of Jupiter's moons, is the most volcanically active object in our solar system. And on March 8th, 2015, Europa, one of Jupiter's other moons, passed right in front of Io from Earth's perspective, allowing UC Berkeley researcher Catherine de Kleer and colleagues to make a thermal map, or a temperature map, of Io's largest volcano, Loki Patera.
So I bet a lot of people were unaware that there's a moon on Jupiter that was the most volcanically active body in our solar system. Mm-hmm. And does it have to do with the large like tidal forces the pulling from Jupiter because it's so big on that particular moon.
That's exactly right.
That's what gives it the energy for all these crazy tectonics.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. So Io and Europa are both two of Jupiter's Galilean moons, so you can see them, as little pinpricks of light with a pair of binoculars if you were looking at Jupiter. And Io is a little bit larger than Europa, but this was kind of I thought this was like a cool opportunity to do an interesting science experiment. So let's chat a little bit more about it. Using infrared light to detect heat, astronomers have already known of Loki Patera's subsurface size, a lava lake about 21,500 square kilometers with a cooler island region in the center. Astronomers have even been able to determine a frequent and systematic resurfacing process that occurs approximately every 1 to 3 years. But without a high degree of spatial resolution from telescope data, the physical process by which this resurfacing event takes place has remained unknown. Right? So we've been able to know that the kind of lava turns over almost in a
period of a few years.
Yeah,
in
this volcano, just by looking at temperature data from telescopes, but we haven't been able to zoom in far enough, if you will, to see how exactly that happens. Kleer et al. Were able to use interferometry and adaptive optics techniques with a large binocular telescope observatory in southeast Arizona to take advantage of the Europa occultation in order to collect temperature data from each side of Loki Patera separately. So let's kind of dissect that a little bit. Interferometry is a technique where you kind of hook up different telescopes across some area in order to basically combine their data into what would essentially be one giant telescope.
Okay.
Right? So they don't have to, you don't have to have a huge big dish. You can sort of use the data across a bunch of smaller dishes to accomplish the same thing.
And it seems like they do this with quite a lot of experiments these days by
correct
just bringing together data from a lot of different sources, right?
Yep. We were talking about the Event Horizon Telescope is going to use this same model with an array across different parts of the Earth. So that's kind of a super large scale way of doing it. This was all kind of just a small array within the one observatory that they used. Adaptive optics techniques are kind of looking through the atmosphere and accounting for how the air kind of affects the light that's passing through our atmosphere in real time. So you can correct for those little variations, in real time, which is cool. And an occultation, Tom, just means that something is passing in front of something else, right? So
one of the other moons passed in front of this moon,
right,
and allowed us to observe it this way.
Exactly. What they found suggests that the lava content must be different on each side of the volcano. Quote, our results indicate that Loki Patera is resurfaced by a multi-phase process in which two waves propagate and converge around the central island. The different velocities and start times of the waves indicate a non-uniformity in the lava gas content and/or crust bulk density across the Patera, end quote. The researchers look forward to gathering more data during the next occultation of Io, but that won't happen again until 2021. Image credit for the Io graphic goes to NASA JPL, and image and video credit of the data graphics and occultation goes to Kleer et al. And UC Berkeley. So
when I heard this, I kind of have a question for you, and
sure.
I don't know if you're going to be able to answer it, but what it made it seem like to me is that there's some sort of compositional difference that's playing a part in this sort of convection of the lava, I guess, of this volcano. So I don't know if we could say exactly what it's made out of, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is the different composition that's causing this sort of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or because I'm not too sure what the composition of Venus's crust is. You know what I mean?
Io's crust.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Io's crust. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm actually not too sure either. But what I will say is, let's take a look at the two videos here, and I'll see if maybe looking at that we can maybe try to answer that question, because that's a really good question. So this is a simulation. This first video is a simulation of the two waves that they think go into this resurfacing event. So Kyle, when you are ready, here we go. So you can see one wave starts in kind of the top left and goes around clockwise, and then the other wave comes around counterclockwise, and you see them kind of converge at the end there. Mm-hmm. They're going around that cooler island spot that we're talking about, and this indicates to me that there's some sort of there's different propagation here, right? So on one end of this island, you have a lava composition where the gas content may be, I don't know, higher, let's say, and then on the other end it might be lower. So the two waves indicate that it's not just all one resurfacing event happening at once, but that it's kind of spread about
around that section.
Right. And if we want to take a look at the second video here, this is using the light curve of how they measured that infrared light as Europa passed in front of Io. Okay. And we can see kind of how they put this thermal data together. So again, Kyle, when you're ready, just give me the finger. There we go. So this is Europa's limb passing in front of that data.
Okay.
And now coming back on the other side. And so over the course of
it passing in front of
it, right, you can get better spatial resolution, so you can measure just one side at a time. So there could be potentially even more, right, than just a two-phase thing happening here, but we wouldn't be able to tell that without better
better resolution to how we can look at it.
Right. We can only measure, one side as Europa's going in front, and then the other side as it comes back around. But if we could really zoom in and measure different facets, the northwest corner, the northeast corner, the southwest corner, the southeast corner, there might be even more to this that we don't understand. So it'll be interesting when they do this again to kind of reproduce the data in 2021. We'll see.
Yeah, pretty crazy though. Io as the most volcanically active thing in our solar system. I just couldn't even imagine what it would be to actually look at that moon.
Yeah,
it'd be crazy.
More planetary science, Tom. Number 4.
This one's pretty cool too. I like this one.
Seismometers for exploring the subsurface of Europa, or TheCi for short, is a 2-year, almost $3 million grant that has been awarded by NASA to a team of researchers at Arizona State University. The team, led by Hongyu Yu, will develop an instrument that can hitch a ride on a future mission to Europa and effectively listen to its interior. By design, most seismometers make use of a mass and spring system to detect earthquake waves in the Earth's interior, but this system is sensitive and easily disturbed if a future Europa lander has a somewhat less than graceful dismount. According to a report by ASU Now, quote, "Our design avoids all of these problems, Yu explains. Yu explains. The TheCi seismometer uses a micro electromechanical system with a liquid electrolyte as the sensor. This design has a high sensitivity to a wide range of vibrations, and it can operate at any angle to the surface, and if necessary, he adds, they can hit the ground hard on landing."
So that seems to be the key to this new seismometer, is that it's more precise, and the way that they use the fluid as the sensor, it just makes it strong enough where this sort of thing can be applied to something that's going all the way to Europa to give you accurate seismic data.
Exactly. Yep.
And as it says earlier, we mentioned it's going to listen to the interior. So when we talk about seismic data, that's sending waves through the crust down, And by looking at how those waves interact with those surfaces, you can learn about what's underneath it.
Yep.
So what we were saying, which is cool about Europa, is that it has that thick ice layer on the outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the big cracks in it. So we know that there's something moving going on, and we were also saying it's probably not exactly uniformly thick either.
Right.
And we might find all kinds of different things with tides, interactions of what's happening on Europa. And Europa was also where we were talking where there was these signs of life, right?
Exactly.
So this is just even more data to know more about a world that could harbor life.
Correct.
Right? And it's a new cool system to aid that.
Right.
The seismometer.
Yeah, I probably should have prefaced that with a little bit more information just about Europa. In general, Europa is that moon that has the ocean surrounded by an icy shell. And the ultimate goal of NASA, I think, is to eventually send a lander so that we can get a good idea about, whether or not these kind of signs of habitability could
actually be these
could pan out, right? And the ultimate goal, right, is to find an area where the ice is kind of the thinnest, so that we can maybe drill and see what's in that ocean, right?
It would be really cool if somehow there's an anomaly of like a small ice shell and like there is liquid water really close to the surface. You never know, right?
Yeah. You notes that the team tested the prototype by hitting it with a sledgehammer. It survived.
That's a good way to test it.
It's a good way to test it. And that's the end of the quote by ASU Now. Will the CC seismometer be able to hear evidence of life directly, Tom?
Probably not, right? Because it's just sending waves through. Like, it's not a biologically sensitive device, right?
Exactly.
You're finding more structural evidence and kind of just piecing together what the planet is. I mean, not the planet, the moon.
Right. So, so we won't really hear life unless, there are giant sea dragons or something.
Moving that you detect seismically.
Yeah, which you never know. But it will be able to give us a better approximation of exactly how thick the icy layer is between the surface and the subsurface ocean. It will also be able to measure the tides, movements within the ice from cracks or fractures, and whether or not Europa has more of those pockets of Great Lakes that were discovered back in 2011. Image credit goes to NASA JPL-Caltech, and video credit goes to Britney, Schmidt, Dead Pixel FX, and the University of Texas at Austin Jackson School of Geosciences for this video of Europa's Great Lakes that were discovered in 2011. So let's take a quick peek at that.
Let's do it.
There you go, my man. Okay. Here we go. So here's Europa, and looks like some interior melting causes there to be a little bit of a gap where a pocket of water that they're calling a lake exists kind of underneath the shell of the ice, but before you reach down into that actual ocean territory.
Gotcha. So they would be able to seismically measure these big fracture events.
Exactly.
Like where these lakes might be.
Yep.
To send something that maybe in the future might look in that region.
Right.
Right? Because if you were to send a rover mission like we are planning on Mars and stuff, we're always looking for water and signs of life, so this is probably what they would look for. They'd look for the fracture, the closest place to find liquid water, and then go over there and look.
Yeah.
So that, and Nancy mentioned in the chat that we come up with a great story when we talk about Europa a lot, but I feel like NASA has kind of been hyping up these ocean worlds, and I always think of them as like, ooh, this might be where life is, but they've done their job, I'm interested, and it seems possible, right?
Yeah. So Karen Riley also asked, where is that water coming from? So I didn't read too much into this paper by the University of Texas, but I imagine it's probably due to internal heating from this tidal force, right? So as Europa orbits Jupiter, just like how the moon orbits Earth, the gravitational pull varies a little bit, right? Because the moon sometimes is a little bit closer to the Earth as it goes around, sometimes a little bit farther, and the gravitational pull kind of heats the interior.
As it pulls the material of the planet.
Exactly.
Right?
So there's kind of like this swelling. I'm exaggerating it quite a bit, but yeah, there's this swelling and kind of retraction.
And we were just talking about Io, where in that case, that force created these large volcanic events.
Exactly.
But the energy on this planet, even though it's an icy body, that energy, instead of creating these crazy volcanic events, it gives it enough energy for it to be liquid water, heat up the icy body, right?
Correct. Yeah. Now that's my best guess, because Jupiter is a much more massive planet than the Earth, and Europa is a smaller moon than even our moon. So the contrast there would cause for a bigger amount of tidal force. Yep. But that's not to say that there couldn't be some radioactive substance that generates heat that could melt pockets of ice into water as well. So so there's that. Great question though. Moving on. Number 5. Talk a little bit about water chemistry, Tom.
This is a good one.
Yeah, this is a cool one. A system for water filtration using only carbon dioxide has been developed by researchers at Princeton University. Currently, most water microfiltration systems make use of porous membranes that catch tiny particles and solutes, separating them from the clean water that passes through. Over time, however, these membranes become gunked up and need to be replaced.
So it's kind of like your classic filter idea, right?
Yep.
It goes through and then it filters them out, but as you filter stuff, it gets left behind.
Yeah, think your Brita container.
You gotta change the filter, yeah.
Exactly. In order to filter water without a membrane, the researchers instead turned to a process called diffusophoresis, which is the separation of particles in a fluid due to a chemical gradient created by some dissolved substance, right? So, according to a recent paper published in Nature Communications by Sangwoo Shin and colleagues, quote, diffusophoresis of colloidal particles can be achieved by dissolution of a gas into a liquid, namely CO2 dissolution into water, and its subsequent dissociation that produces ion concentration gradients.
So what we're doing is putting CO2 into the water, and when you put that gas in there, that's what's creating these concentration gradients, just by putting the gas into the water.
Yep. So, and I guess we should just say too, a gradient is kind of like a gradual change, right? So where there's a gradient that exists in the water chemistry once you dissolve carbon dioxide into it, right? So there's this gradual kind of change in the water chemistry as it maybe flows through.
Yeah, so that's what allows you to filter out the clean water and get rid of the particles inside of it.
Exactly. Using this principle, we show that the directed motion driven by dissolution of CO2 can be exploited to separate particles with very low energy consumption, end quote. The trick lies in the increase of acidity in the water when the CO2 is added. At this time, a fast-moving, positively charged hydrogen atom and a slow-moving, negatively charged bicarbonate molecule are created. The difference in speed and charge produces an electric field, which then steers the particles to be filtered toward one side of the flow tube, depending on their own individual surface charge. Right?
That's pretty cool. So they've managed to basically create two little streams, if you want to put it that way, just by using this charge that's created by just dissolving a gas in the water. That is what's causing the separation.
Exactly. It kind of forces any of the little particles that you don't want in maybe drinking water to move to one side, right?
Water, yeah,
exactly. So there are a couple videos that we can show you guys of this.
And the most important part about it is that it is just from putting the gas in it. It's not running it through a filter. It's adding something into the system that you can then use to divert your I guess, sooty water or whatever's in it out of the stream.
Exactly right. So the first,
so that's what makes it so enticing, right? Is we don't need these filters.
Right. So, So I mean, that's what's cool about it, is that, you know, it's not a system that relies on
filtration. Right?
Exactly.
It
is a filtration system, but it doesn't rely on
a filter.
Yeah,
right?
on an actual, you know, solid object. So we've got the videos lined up. We'll take a look at them. Let me just pause it really quick and run it back here. Let me know when you're ready. Okay. So in this first one, this video is showing, quote, negatively charged polystyrene particles suspended in water migrating away from the gas-liquid interface when the suspension is exposed to carbon dioxide, right? So, I don't know, can we play that one more time, Kyle? Because it's pretty quick. All right, it's still playing. So yeah, so we can see the kind of the particles, they're, I believe, little plastic particles, are kind of moving away, right? They're kind of moving toward the center, and the flow of water is going across, right, this way. So as that flow of water goes across, now this gas-liquid interface exists at the top and bottom of these kind of columns here, and we're seeing all the particles migrate inward
those columns
because the electric field is forcing them into that section. And if we bring up the second video, Kyle. It's going. Awesome. So this is just the opposite now, right? So now these are positively charged particles that accumulate toward the gas-liquid interface because they have the opposite charge. So they're attracted now to that interface where the carbon dioxide is being changed from a gas into a liquid as it's dissolving into the water liquid there. They get attracted, so they're going to migrate to kind of the top and bottom end of the flow tube here.
Cool. So in the chat, Karen Riley asked, so the gas leaves with the particles? So what's actually happening when you put the gas in, it's creating a charge. So that's what's allowing the particles to either be attracted into the flow tube or out of the flow tube.
Right.
So it's not like the gas is really directly transporting the particles. It's just creating the charge in the overall water that's sort of separating it out, right?
So the carbon dioxide actually dissolves into the water. It becomes part of the water, and it forms something called carbonic acid, which is the same sort of process that seltzer and sodas undergo to get that carbonation, that fizz, right? So that's the other kind of interesting thing about this, is that it's totally not harmful for ingestion, right? Carbon dioxide, we drink it in sodas all the time, and it's
fine.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So that's what's really cool about it. Once separated, the flow tube is split, and clean filtered water can be produced up to 1,000 times more efficiently than by conventional microfiltration systems. The researchers also note that the system is easily scalable, meaning it may be utilized to provide clean drinking water to developing regions of the world in the not too distant future, right? So that just means that they did it with, you know, a small apparatus. They can easily make this a bigger apparatus to make
to
lots
put into
of
your water system,
right? Lots of potable water. Image and video credit goes to Shin et al. And yeah, so I thought this was really interesting. This caught my eye, particularly as I was working with my buddy Trevor doing the pool maintenance stuff, and I was like, oh, here's something right up your alley, dude. Mm-hmm. Water filtration using carbon dioxide. So we were saying, I don't know, if this proves to be,
all it's cracked up
to be, I wouldn't be surprised if that becomes a new option for, you know, high-end pool services, is to
how you filter your water.
Yeah, because as it stands, like, chlorine is a hassle because you have to keep the pH level, you know. You don't, like, even if it's just a little bit too much chlorine and, you know, you get that water in your eyes, it's going to burn your eyes or irritate your eyes a little bit. So if we could do away with that chemical,
having to add that in,
and just use carbon dioxide, that would be a win-win for everybody. So pretty sweet.
Yeah, at face value, it seems like this this way of filtering is the way to do it, right? At face value, it seems like it's just a better way of filtering. It's like filtering without actually needing a filter.
Right.
It's kind of like bypassing the crappiest part of having a filter is that stuff goes through it.
Right.
So, pretty cool. Pretty good idea.
Nancy Kalita asks, does it fizz like seltzer? I don't know for sure.
I don't know.
But I want to say that
I think the carbon dioxide would probably be dissolved in the water.
Yeah.
Would be my guess.
And they can probably separate that out, I would think. But I'm not entirely sure.
I don't think the water you get would be fizzy. I don't think so.
Right.
Yeah, like we were saying, it would just be dissolved in your water to the point where at these concentrations it wouldn't be like a bubbly soda, right?
That you had to stare at your
Just
own
look at
water
it,
glass.
just to make sure.
Yeah, before you said that.
Just check it out.
Yeah. And Karen also says, swimming in seltzer, LOL. Yes, that would be, that sounds a little bit sticky for my taste.
A little bubbly in the pool.
Yeah, but who knows. Moving on. Number 6. We're going to talk a little bit about robotics.
This one's pretty cool.
This one's cool too. A wearable robotic device can assist with balance loss and subsequent falls, according to a recent study by Vito Monaco and colleagues of the Biorobotics Institute in Pisa, Italy, and École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne in Switzerland.
Good job, man.
Yeah, thank you. I know, I pronounced that perfectly. Dubbed the Active Pelvis Orthosis, or APO for short, the device differs from other wearable robotics in that it allows the user to walk freely, reacting and assisting only when it detects signs of balance loss by supplying counteracting torques at the hips. And we have some video of that, actually. So let's see if we can bring that up. I have to do this a little bit kind of crazy because I have to go to VLC. So let me do this. Let me do that. And whenever Kyle gives me the go-ahead, here we go. So we can see they're walking on a treadmill, and then they kind of jerk the treadmill without any warning so as to kind of ruin the balance of this person that's walking with the device. And the device detects that the person is off balance and
it helps them rebalance.
Pivots their hip so that they can catch their balance. And then they do this in slow-mo so that we can really see it here.
So when I was reading this, what I think is kind of interesting about using a device like this is that when you're using braces and things like that, when you're like immobilizing yourself, it's really bad for muscle atrophy and like your overall health, right? So that's why if someone has a bad back or a bad knee, you can't just put on a big brace that always supports you, because then you don't use your skeletal muscle system correctly. So that's why I think a lot of focus is put on devices such as this, where it is sort of like a brace and would help you stand up if you needed some help, but it's also not a super assistive thing that's immobilizing you to the point where it's doing the structure for you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So it's only there to give you the assistance when you need, which is what ideally they're hoping to get out of braces eventually.
Yeah.
Where they can be sort of an appendage that moves with you and helps you without totally immobilizing your body.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see this sort of research going on.
Yeah, and like you said, what's interesting to me is like you still need to have the reflex to try and keep your balance, right?
Yeah,
I
you don't want to become immobilized and just
I don't think that this device, like if you just totally
went like
stood
that,
still, it's not going to save you from falling in a sense like that. But
I don't think it's strong enough if you just fell backwards. Yeah, it's not going to return you to right. But like if you just have weak hips and then you have an uneasy step, it's just a countermeasure to help. Whereas a healthy person would be able to do it, it assists you a little bit like that.
Right. According to the authors, quote, "This is particularly important when the users still retain important voluntary abilities. In fact, prone to fall subjects are still able to generate countermeasures to falling events, but not strong and fast enough to avoid these events in most of the cases. In this situation, it is necessary to develop ecological and symbiotic solutions able to help only when necessary at the onset of imminent fall, end quote. And that's basically wrapping up exactly what we were just saying, that it's not designed to basically prevent you from falling if you were trying to fall, but it'll help you if you're trying not to fall. The device was tested with 8 elderly and 2 amputee volunteers, and the authors note that the personalization of the device to each subject was actually quite minimal, so the prospect of broader application seems pretty hopeful. And video credit goes to V. Monaco et al. For the video there. So yeah, so we're seeing in the comments here, wow, great technology, by Nancy Kalita. We got a question here that doesn't seem really too related to the topic here, so we're gonna let that one kind of pass. And since we're kind of running low on time, let's jump now to the last question, number 7. The last story is a video by Jukin Media, distributed by the Weather Channel, which trèSci was tagged in by none other than our video producer, Kyle Kalita.
He's actually right. He's right over
right over there. So
let's check this one out.
Let's check this one out. Wild. The video, like yeah. You know what? Let's just watch it. I'm not gonna even.
No spoilers.
No
please.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
So hang on. This one is a little off center here. Let's do this. There is some sound to this one, so let's take a look. All right.
Yeah, this is... We were chatting about this before. This has to be something that happens all the time, right? Because they go under the ground.
Yeah.
But it's such a weird, crazy thing when you actually watch it happen.
So this is a clam digging into the sand during low tide at a beach in northern Oregon. This, for some reason, went viral.
And I saw it shared by a few people, and it is pretty sweet, though. I can see why.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah, so as it's, like, filtering out the water, it, like, takes in a lot of sand and shoots it out. That was pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy. So, yeah, so that is how clams dig themselves into the sand there.
What this initially made me think was, like, life on Earth is pretty wild. Like, just watching that, I was like, that is pretty strange.
It is.
Right?
It is. Definitely very strange. Yeah, when you first tagged us in that column, I'm not going to lie, I was like, why are we watching this? But it is cool. It is really cool. So thank you for sharing that with us. Appreciate that. That's all the news, Tom. So without further ado. I like saying that. I'm not gonna lie. Let's move into Tom's Corner.
Sounds good, my man. So, I don't really have a lot of information to be given right here now, but as we look at science stories all the time, we sort of get things about planetary science, paleontology, biology, chemistry. There's a lot of research done in a lot of different fields, right? Mm-hmm. And in any time you're trying to do scientific research, you're basically kind of propping yourself up, making yourself seem like this is a good idea to do research, right? So you can get funding.
Absolutely.
Right? And know any kind of endeavor that you're going for.
Mm-hmm.
But in the United States, as which we do with a lot of things, there's sort of barriers to
certain topics.
Yeah, just by the nature of the United States.
Yeah.
So a few things that I've been kind of wishing there was more articles about that have been directly affecting me. I want to know more about medical marijuana research.
Okay.
I just want to read more studies about it. I want to kind of learn more about it, as how it might be able to be treated for pain as a medical marijuana, and just in general, just more information about it. But in an article that I showed you, it just it seems to be hard in the United States to get a grant to then do some sort of research studying marijuana because of the type of substance that it's categorized as.
Mm-hmm.
So the point I was trying to bring up is, why do we have these barriers for studying something that's legal in some states and is quite it's used throughout the United States and it can be quite impactful on our society, why isn't this something that's being studied by science, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's like kind of that's the first one.
Right. So my take on this is the categorization part, right? So marijuana, not too long ago, was in the minds of many people a drug, right? Just bad substance.
Yeah,
don't want to use it. Yeah, don't want to have any sort of affiliation to it. And you know, for many jobs in the United States, we do screenings to make sure that people aren't
because it's an illicit substance,
right, smoking marijuana, and yeah, because it can impair your ability to do things. That, of course, that mentality has since changed. You know, amongst many people, just in general. You know, in certain states, it's a legal substance now.
Yeah, so it seems like we're at a point now where we should be doing a lot of research, right? It's becoming legalized in certain states. Like, we want to know.
Right.
Like, don't just throw it at things without having the proper knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So
it's almost a miracle, or I mean, I guess you look at it as a miracle. It's just kind of uncanny to me that the law would get overturned without any scientific research being done on it.
And so you would think that they would be throwing money at it, sort of saying, do the research, like this is where the money's for, but it turns out it's the opposite because they still haven't changed what it's listed under as a Schedule 1 or something, I think they're listed as.
Federally.
Yeah, federally.
Right.
So that just puts barriers up for doing research.
Right.
Which I don't think helps anybody.
Well, certainly doesn't help me. Yeah, so it's a little strange. I don't really see why researchers have a hard time getting access to the things that they need to do their research ever. You know?
Yeah.
Like if we're conducting experimentation in a laboratory setting, as long as the safety procedures are being upheld at the laboratory level, then I don't know. I don't really understand what the big fuss is, why anybody should be denied any substance at all, really.
Yeah, in order to further our knowledge of it, right?
Right. So,
especially one that's becoming so prevalent in a lot of states right now.
Right.
It's something that needs to be studied.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird thing, the way I just think that these sort of topics get researched and discussed in the scientific community, and when there is a barrier to it, a lot of time there's a lot of, there's a few small studies and they try to make claims from them, but it's tough with such limited studies and you don't have a lot of other information to draw from, like other studies.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a wishy-washy situation that gets created that I think needs to be fixed to allow for more research to be done.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that I want to point out, though, is that, we read this article. It had a point that I think was salient, but by the same token, it was a little vague in the sense of...
Like what exactly are those boundaries?
And what exactly are those studies that are not...
being done, right?
Right, that are not being done. Because there is plenty of scientific research conducted on the THC molecule, of which marijuana is, the substance that contains that molecule that elicits the experience of it. So, since we can seclude out THC out of the substance marijuana, you don't really need marijuana in order to conduct scientific research on the effects of THC. And so I get where you're coming from, where it's like, well, now marijuana is a substance that is just totally available to an entire state of people, multiple states of people. And so large-scale studies on maybe its effects in
different settings,
should be conducted.
Yeah, like you were saying, we do have a decent understanding of THC and its effects on the body, but a large-scale legalization and part of society, like it's a different sort of thing, right?
Exactly. So, sorry, James said I had nice looking hair, so I had to tell him. Yeah, thanks.
So, yeah, I'm not totally saying just let them do whatever they want, test it on people, let them do whatever.
No, certainly not.
But it's just these topics that are kind of sensitive, I think, are oversensitive for too long of a period of time.
Yeah.
I think for what we knew about it at the time, it sort of made sense, but the guidelines don't change quick enough to allow the correct research to be done when it needs to be done.
Right. And you should bring up the quote, too.
Yeah.
What was it? Yeah.
In 2016, the Surgeon General said that, the Attorney General said that only bad people smoke marijuana. In 2016, last year.
Yeah.
When people were talking about the changing the category of it to do research.
Right.
And that was his response. And people were like...
Yeah. So that's what I mean. That's the old guard. That's the old way of thinking that, this is the gateway drug and all this nonsense where,
as opposed... Well, when you really do look at the situation in the United States right now, where it's trying to, diverge from the opiate scene to anything else, basically, at this point in time.
Yeah.
It's like this research really needs to be readily available.
Yeah, exactly.
It really does.
Because, people need to be able to make an informed decision whether or not they want to take pain opioid medication over something that is available to them. Yeah. Right, like medical marijuana is available in many states now, even on the East Coast, which is... Yeah. So, I agree with you there. I think that the thinking needs to change a little bit.
And then the other thing that the article talked about that we don't have to talk about for too long is it mentions guns as well.
Yeah.
Is that in the United States, I think we've all heard enough about it in the recent history, but there's been a lot of issues with guns and gun violence, and there seems to be the same sort of, just it makes it a little bit more difficult in the United States to get funding. Like we were saying, the CDC doesn't even like using the word gun whenever they try and ask for research or things like that.
Yeah.
Because they know that the public doesn't really like when they do these things. But I think it does do a shame to shy away from certain research just because of the way certain people think about it.
Right.
As opposed to just letting the science decide what needs to be done.
Yeah. I agree. And all I'll say is I was a little bit confused with that point as well.
Why would you put the two together? It seems to be a little bit of a different issue.
Yeah.
But the article put the two together. But I think they were just trying to make a blanket statement that some of the bigger issues and things that are going on in the U.S. aren't being focused on as much as they could be.
Right.
Because of silly guidelines.
Yeah. So, yeah. they did point out research grants are happily awarded for
other things,
diseases like diphtheria or whatever. I don't think I pronounced that right, but
just like these,
only 100 or so people died from that disease, whereas thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people died from gunshot wounds. So why don't we allow scientific studies on firearms and their effects? Why don't we allow for that? But my counter argument to that is, you have a choice. Well, you don't have a choice in being shot, I guess, but you have a choice in owning a firearm.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
You don't have a choice in contracting a disease a lot of times. So
yeah, I see the difference with that. Yeah,
I think there is definitely a difference there.
There's a mental framework of that these sort of things just need to be researched because they're just a natural ailment of the body.
Right. And
it's easier to sort of just get funding on that grounding.
Right. And I wonder if especially with the firearm situation, if the politics of it look at it as if we start just allowing all this scientific research and all this grant money to go into researching, this problem, then we're admitting that the problem is real in a sense. It's like politics can't solve this problem. They want to be the ones to be like, well, look, we reduced,
did it this way. Yeah,
we reduced all this gun violence in the country. They're having trouble doing that, and to then admit that they can't solve it on their own and they're going to turn to science to try and study it and do it for them, then that's a big defeat on their end, and they're the money holders. You know what I mean? So
it is these weird little politics that are holding this type of research back from being done, and it is kind of silly.
Yeah.
For how long it's been impacted.
Yeah.
But on that note, that's really about it.
Yeah. Well, Tom, thank you for joining me for another great episode.
Yes, and everybody in the chat, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
and
thank
commenting.
you guys. We really appreciate you guys being here. As always, this show will go up on YouTube and on Facebook in the coming days, free of charge. So we would appreciate if you could share it around with your friends, with your coworkers, with anybody who you think might find this kind of stuff interesting.
And James said in the chat, like he just recently got here, we talked about a lot of cool things, from dinosaurs to seismographs on
and
different
volcanoes and all sorts of stuff that would be right up his alley.
You don't want to miss that.
So definitely share this with somebody that you think might be interested in it, because that's how this will proliferate, right? Is if word of mouth gets to an audience of people that want to hear about it. So,
and don't forget to keep tagging us in things.
Exactly.
I would like to see, anytime you see a science article, anytime in the news, whether you really want to know that much more about it or not, I kind of would just like to know what type of science news kind of gets filtered to the people that are watching the show.
Yeah, man.
To kind of keep filtering what we see.
Right on.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. That's going to do it for us this week. So join us next week, same time, same place, and we'll catch you then.